This is a new. Welcome to the November 14th, 2024 meeting of the Houston chapter of the Electric Vehicle Association. So we've got some exciting things to hear about from our speaker today. And one or more of our members also were recently at the expo in Austin. John as well. All right. So it was the more, not the one or more. It was the more. I like that. More is better. All right. So glad to have everyone here in person and folks online. Everybody's welcome. And I will go through a few things that we've got on some PowerPoints here just to let folks know what's coming up, because next month is December and December is a little bit unusual. So we are, let's go to the next page here. Yeah, there we go. I just wanted to be sure that this little group of our participants disappeared so we wouldn't cover up some of the great cars that you can see here. My screen is shrunk. It's okay online? Everybody can see the full page? Because on my computer, it's good. In the room, it is shifted over a little bit. Yeah, that is interesting.
Looks good on mine.
Good online. Okay. All right. Now we've got it in the room where it says past events instead of just events. All right. Good. Yeah, because those more members that all went to get to see what was happening in Austin really had a fun time from the way I understand it. So after our speaker, we'll have some of them show some of their pictures, but here you get a quick taste of some of the things. I see it looks like a conversion in the upper right there. It's always fun to see those. And of course, they like showing their new stuff, all the different manufacturers that are around the world nowadays at events like this. So that was good for folks. And December social. So we have put out the questionnaire on our Facebook page and Katz's on Westheimer one. Now there are two Katz's on Westheimer. So it's the one at, I believe if I remember the address, 5930.
Call it Galleria.
They call it the Galleria Katz's because Katz's never closes, but it is confusing when they have two of the multiples. I think they have a total of 4 in Houston, 2 of them on Westheimer. So it's the one with the parking lot that has some solar panels covering some of the parking places. That's the one we're going to go to because we like that. The one that's not Montrose, right? Yeah, so one that they call the Galleria. So that's the one. And we're going to meet on December 8th, which is a Sunday, which is good that it's not a Thursday, because we know that there are people in town who like to communicate with us, but they've just always got something going on the second Thursday. So we do see some folks once a year. And which time did we settle on for starting on that Sunday? I think 3 o'clock is a good start time. So yeah, we'll go with 3 o'clock because that's not an exact meal time. Folks, when we go there, everybody's free to get their own food or no food or just drinks or whatever they like there. And it's not so crowded by starting at 3 in the afternoon because it's not noon and it's not 6 p.m. And so we'll go with 3 p.m. on December 8th, that's Sunday. Then our next meeting will be the second Thursday in January, January 9th, and we're already talking about speakers for that. And another fun thing that we'd like to do is start up a monthly pub night where folks could drive their cars and we could, be part of the time out in the parking lot. So if anybody has a good suggestion for a location where they think they would be friendly to us, coming and going to go out in the parking lot, looks for cars, not thinking that we have walked off without paying our tab or something, it would be fun. So any ideas that folks have for a pub that they would like to just make our standard place, that would be nice. And we can see what we can get going. So this is some interesting information about Cifra.com. So they are an EV incentive finder. So I suggest, when people are interested, they just go to that website.
A presenter in July.
Oh, well, she was our July presenter. That's why.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
from
You
July
can actually see
2023.
her on our YouTube.
Okay,
Uh,
July 2023, so a year and a half ago.
This is a pre-release software that she's looking for people to test,
Oh,
but
good.
it will show you any brand and what incentives are available, or rebates statewide, the federal and otherwise.
Okay.
I think a lot of people are asking this question right now because they may want to buy, before the end of the year.
Before the incentives go away?
Maybe.
Yeah, people have been hearing rumors about incentives going away. So yeah, that might be what people want to do. Yeah. So we always encourage folks to join the big organization that has lots of chapters in the US and Canada. And so some of the benefits you can see here listed. And it also just the socializing and the opportunity there. Recently, I've always been having the meeting of the big organization out in California, specifically Southern California. My wife and I went out one time, and recently they've been having it at the facility of Aptera. And Aptera is hosting the once yearly annual meeting of the big organization. And the exciting thing about being out at Aptera is you get to see what's going on out there. And for folks not familiar with it, Aptera means without wings. And basically, if you think of a small two-person airplane minus the wings, and you put three wheels on it, that is what they're building, and it will be solar powered. So they call it an SEV, a solar electric vehicle. So we all are hoping that they will be very successful. And so the last couple of years in a row, the big organization, as I said, has been hosted by Aptera, and it's really been nice that we've been able to do that. So that's another advantage of going into the big organization. So they have dues here at our chapter in Houston. We don't have any dues, but if you want to join the big one, there's a nominal.
But we get a piece of that.
We do get a piece back, which helps us, when we want to print up some things and so forth. And having a nice projector and things like that. Yeah. So our needs in the club are modest, but there are some things that cost money. So it is useful. I'm a member of the national organization. I've got family membership for all my family members too. So one of the things that we get from them are these one sheets. And of course, these get old very quickly because we all know that the models out on the market are changing quickly. But we do have these sheets available. We've given them out at different events that we've had in the last few months. Some folks might be familiar with the Houston Hobby Airport 1940 Air Terminal Museum. So we had our Wings and Wheels event, and we gave out these sheets there. Also, recently, we've had two events at the Houston Botanic Garden. They've celebrated their 4th anniversary, and that's a fun place to go. And you can go and both see cars when we're there and see the gardens themselves. And one of those times we actually were there when they had the plant vendors there. And of course, I couldn't get out without buying some orchids for my wife. But anyway, these sheets are available, and we encourage, if you think you have a place, where you work or some other place, you want to give them out to other folks, take multiple copies, because we've got a stack. And as I say, we want to keep those in circulation with people. And am I still sharing? It's not on my screen here anymore, but.
Our website and websites of other EV organizations.
Yeah, for folks in the room here, they can get some of our cards, and they are available. But let me stop and start sharing again because it is not showing my slides anymore. So did it just pop out of PowerPoint? Maybe it just came out of I need to get back into PowerPoint. Come on now. Okay, there we go. I'm back to showing everything. Yeah. Okay. Okay, opportunities. So what the organization that had been called TechCetra or TechEtra is now renamed itself to Texas EV. So they are, I believe, are still doing the same thing. They're advocating for statewide electric transportation policies. They help getting charging out in places where people need charging and so forth. They are looking for more advisory board members. So I suggest people can go to their website, which is now txev.org. So you don't have to remember which letters are and aren't in their acronym. And so that is good to see. And other opportunities, folks that would like to be a webmaster or work with our Instagram site, which is always good way to get info out to people. Also our Facebook site. On YouTube, we always put these meetings after they're recorded onto YouTube. So I recommend people want to see something that has been done here in the past, go to YouTube. Lobbying for electric buses is something that a lot of people in the club like to hear about. So if anybody's interested in getting involved in that, please do. Also, other EV education and STEM, science, technology in schools. And if anyone would like to be a candidate for an office in this club, so speak to any of the officers and we can.
And now they can contact us through our email.
Through email is good. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm. That's always good to get young blood involved in the offices here. We're all just volunteers. And so that's it. We're at the end of those. Now I will stop sharing. Okay. Okay. All right. Are we ready to move on, Colin? Okay. Okay. Well, why don't you step on up here and I will hand you the mic and we will let you get going because I know there's lots of exciting things happening in precinct 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, your fleet has been expanding.
Oh, yeah.
Good, good. Okay. So I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself and Colin will pull up your slides.
Okay.
Eventually. Delay.
Well, while we wait for the slides, I am Raymond Burns. I am the Director of IT and Fleet for Harris County Commissioner Precinct 2. That would be the precinct governed by Adrian Garcia at the moment. One of the big challenges that Commissioner Garcia wanted to tackle when he got into office was, having technology contribute to the constituents. And it's more than just, passing out hardware or, giving out iPads to constituency, but actually empowering, educating, and engaging the community. So one of the things that we've begun to tackle is our fleet coordination and logistics and how we deploy our fleet. A big issue that we face in Precinct 2 is pollution. Our air quality, especially with the factories, it reduces the quality of life. And we see that in the statistics. A lot of our metrics show that Precinct 2 does not live as long as Precinct 1 and Precinct 4. So we're doing everything we can to reduce that pollution. And that includes what we put out in our fleet. So
much sharing.
Okay. Well, a little bit of what I wanted to talk to you guys about today was our EV migration plan and how we set that up, how we went about that, some of the thought process that went into it, and just get some feedback possibly from you guys. I know you guys are all well experienced in alternative energy solutions and vehicles, so I would love to hear some of the things that you're doing as well. Not just yet? Okay. Well, a little bit about myself. I really got into EVs and alternative energy about right around 2014. I moved out into Dayton, Texas, got me a small homestead, and really tried to give my family the best foot forward by supplying everything that they would need, whether that was, food, agriculture, raising animals. We tried to do everything that we could in-house so that my kids can understand you can do more than just survive, you can thrive. And that led into, the installation of solar panels and getting batteries, raising up animals as well as opening our greenhouse and growing food, we really tried to expand and explore all solutions. A little bit about my solar installation. I ended up going with in-phase microinverters. Did a lot of research. Did a lot of research on just the technology that's out there, but also the resiliency. And what I found is that the microinverters give you the best risk aversion, right? So that when you do have a disaster, all your panels become independent sources. That way, whenever panels go down, you then have the microinverters to keep the other panels up. Now, you do have a bigger risk of clipping, right? So you're not using the full power of those panels. However, that once you analyze that and compare it, the pros and cons, they're just they're not close at all. So even with what we're doing with Precinct 2, a lot of that is based in my findings, my research that I've done personally, which is why we're also looking into going with microinverters for our larger utility scale solar. But to get started, this is the start of our EV migration plan for Precinct 2, and I wanted to go over kind of the why, like what really kicked this off. So next slide. Again, like I stated earlier, we had a very urgent need for clean air. One of the first metrics we pulled out, especially during COVID, is how pollution were affecting families that were stay at home. And everybody is being quarantined, and the effects of pollution on that quality of life for the entire family, not just the worker that is out in the field. Another thing that we really wanted to tackle was disaster response. Whenever we have a disaster here, especially a hurricane, we tend to look for alternative energy sources. At Precinct 2, we service our own fuel stations, both gasoline and diesel. And what we find is that as soon as the hurricane hit, those stations go down, and we're relying on third-party vendors trying to get fuel in. We usually order like skid tanks. We'll bring in 1,000 gallons of fuel, and immediately we'll get a response from the community. We all need fuel. Like, you can't please open up the fuel for everybody in the community, which poses a big problem because there's still a cost assessment, and we can't really charge the community for the fuel that we're getting from, tax dollars. So it proposes a very big issue trying to deal in fuel and be that fuel vendor and our own internal fuel stations. So we start to look for alternative solutions and alternative energy sources, which is how we also came to the conclusion of electric vehicles. We did some research into propane as well as hydrogen. And I mean, not only is the infrastructure not there, but the vendor supply is very much bottlenecked with only a few vendors. And we want to give the best choice to our community and our constituency by having a wide selection of marketplace for the items that we get and the equipment we get. So the best solution was EV. Another thing, again, fuel diversity, but also climate change, right? No matter what side of the aisle you may stand on, we cannot deny that pollution has an effect on the climate that's around us. I mean, we've seen increased storms here lately, and regardless of where you stand, the financial implications just point to EV as being the solution. So we took all of that into account and made a very, very, very aggressive plan, even so much that me, the IT director, has become the fleet director as well. And a lot of people don't see the connection. It's almost like, how did somebody in IT get in fleet? But if you're trying to do something different, right? And if you're trying to revolutionize a niche, if you're trying to revolutionize a base, you have to bring in an outside source. And what's really unique about IT is that we can see numbers and we can analyze metrics different than a lot of other professions, right? We see things differently, and we also see workflows, right? Data analytics, we can see how processes should shape out based on just the numbers. So they brought me in kind of outside source, and some of the reports that I was pulling and some of the solutions that I came up with, I mean, it was just like magic. it opened up an entirely new supply of ideas. And as well as there was a lot of really good buy-in from our staff, as well as from our constituents on implementing some of these solutions. So if you go to the next slide, we can talk about the plan. So the plan, because as you can imagine with local government, everything is kind of bottled in bureaucracy. You can't just have a good idea. Every good idea will face consequences. So you really have to understand policy and working within the environment that you're in. So if you go ahead to the next slide, I want to go over the kind of the steps of the plan, because it was not about just purchasing EVs. First thing I attacked was infrastructure. So charging stations, that is the biggest misconception and disinformation within the precinct 2 community that I found. When you say level 1, level 2, level 3 charging, nobody understands any of that. And they all thought it comes with the plug it in the wall, it'll work. Everything should work the way that it's advertised, just like my golf cart. And it was the biggest misconception that I had to fight against, right? So what we did was we leased one electric vehicle. But for that one electric vehicle, we looked at all of the locations that electric vehicle would visit, and we put at minimum 4 charging stations in each location. And we did level 2 charging stations. Now, there was a little bit of a testing phase that we had to do to select the charging station we wanted. But what we found out is, again, just looking at policy and how local government works, we reached out to other agencies, and Texas A&M was a very, very big one. They were a very big proponent to, EV migrations and kind of how to do this. They have led the charge in a lot of ways. What they ended up having was in-phase, they had Clipper Creek before they were bought out. So they used the Clipper Creek level 2 charging stations. They had them up and running for years, no issues, no problems. And we were able to use that data to say, this is the solution that we should go with. So we installed level 2 charging stations at 4 or 5 locations. It was 5 locations because we got 20 chargers. We did 5 locations before we started investing in a bunch of vehicles. We just leased 1 boat. There was still a misconception that electric vehicles are golf carts, right? It's everybody thinks it's not going to go when I need it to go. It won't go the speed that it needs to go for Texas roadways. I mean, there was just a lot of disinformation out there. It's going to catch on fire if you plug it in overnight. There was a lot we had to combat. Yes, this is the staff. Now, mind you, the staff we're talking about, park staff employees. These are the people that go around and cut grass, do weed eating. They're not familiar with the technology. Public Works, our municipality division, they fix the roads, pothole repair. They're not familiar with the technology. All they know is they get in their pickup truck and, they can blow smoke whenever they want to. So that's the extent of what they have. The other thing that they know is that if something were to break, they have a wrench and they can make it work again. It may not be the best way, but they can make it work again. And there's this idea that with electric vehicles, if something breaks, we're out of luck. There's nothing we can do. We're stuck with a, $100,000 brick. So that was a very big thing for us to combat as well. So again, you can't attack a problem head on in the middle of local government. You have to do it through policy, right? So what we did was, once we installed the charging stations, that was just to accommodate the one vehicle going to different locations. The next thing we did was track everything. People were very afraid of range, as well as the amount of charging. There's not enough infrastructure for what I do. We would always get response from the employees, the staff, that I travel 200 miles a day. It's not going to do what I need it to do. So we track everything. We track where the vehicles go for our entire fleet, and we are able to identify different vehicles and their traveling behaviors. We found that within one day, there was not one vehicle that went over 50 miles in that one day. But again, without the data, it's hard to prove any of that to someone who is very firm in believing I travel 100 miles a day. Now they know how much fuel they use, which brings into account idling, right? So we had vehicles that will idle 8 hours a day. The minute they turn the truck on, it never turns off. I mean, you have park employees, it's hot in the summer, they go to the park, get out of their truck for 40 minutes, the truck never turns off, they jump in, go to the next park. Now, the distance between parks are half a mile, 2 miles. So to them, we're using all this fuel, we're driving all day, but you're not. You're going 12 miles in one day. However, your vehicle never shuts off. So once we started to track everything, we started tracking everything through pre-trip inspection, digital pre-trip inspections before we got into actual GPS trackers. But just through pre-trip inspections, we were able to, pull in a lot of data to see what the behavior was in terms of how much utilization there was, which exposed the next level GPS trackers, and that exposed idling. So then we implemented an idle reduction plan. So the idle reduction plan says that, you cannot idle over 20% of the use of this vehicle, right? Keep all your idling under 20%. And we have the trackers that'll tell you, they'll give you an alert whenever you're starting to approach that 20% margin. So it was, again, you start attacking things through policy, and that gives a lot of opportunities, especially for EVs. Even when they say electric vehicles they don't go fast enough for the Texas roads. Well, you're not supposed to be doing 80 and 90, 105 miles an hour. Now with the trackers in place, all of the speed is regulated to the posted road signs. There's no problem with EVs doing 60 and 65. So it's changing those behaviors first that help us to really get buy-in with the EVs. Once we did those things and we kind of targeted the behavior of driving and the idea, the conception of the vehicles, that's when we started to look at how can we bring in EVs. So we looked at life cycling, which we did not have before. There was no life cycling policy before me. You would decommission a vehicle when the transmission went out. When you got parts on the road, it's time to send that vehicle to auction. So I developed a vehicle life cycle plan, which was 10 years. It's double the warranty, or 100,000 miles, or if there is a repair that is half the Blue Book value cost of the vehicle. So that exposed about 110 vehicles that needed to be replaced, right? Within that replacement plan, now it's time to identify where are EVs the best fit. So in this process, we put together a committee to really look at electric vehicles and what all issues we may run into, because I never want to put end user in a vehicle where they may run out of battery or charge, and now they just don't want anything to do with EVs. So we don't do EVs for take-home vehicles. We also had to implement a ride share, because when looking at the utilization, there are just some people, some staff members that will never drive the vehicle enough to where it makes sense financially. Mileage reimbursement it will make more sense for mileage reimbursement than to give them an assigned vehicle. So we actually reached out to a third-party vendor. They're called Launch Mobility, and they do a keyless rideshare program. So all of our employees have phones. Now they can walk up to a vehicle with their phone and reserve a vehicle without having to use the key. So that really helped to push EVs as well, because EVs are the best case scenario for ride sharing. From the life cycle, we identified the vehicles that could be EV, and the best way we got buy-in was idling. You can't idle more than like 5 minutes in an ICE vehicle, but if you take an EV, you can idle as much as you want. And people loved it. They loved, because it's hot. The AC can stay on as long as it wants, no problem. Now, there was still some aversion to, it won't, it's still a go-kart, right? That was the idea. It's still a golf cart. It won't have enough power to do what we need. So the very first vehicles we replaced was our public works utility, and we got a Silverado EV. one big point for us in purchasing EVs is the kilowatt hours. We want to make sure there is enough battery for the potential of vehicle to home or vehicle to grid, right? If we have a disaster, we want to make sure that the equipment we have has the most battery possible so that we can possibly feed energy back into our buildings when the times comes. And the Silverado EV, as you all know, has over 200 kilowatt hours of battery. It was the best bang for the buck. So we got 4 of those to start with. And the very first thing they did was pull a skid steer. Total weight was about 11,000 pounds with the trailer included. They pulled it the entire day, used about 40% battery, and it was the best experience they had. From there, it took off. Everybody wanted an EV, till now we have a waiting list. The other thing that we did was to encourage more infrastructure, because we do have, community center directors. We have people who maintain and manage facilities within the precinct. To encourage more infrastructure, we wrote a policy to where employees can charge up to 4 hours if they have an electric vehicle. So now if you have your own personal vehicle, we can install a charging station at your facility and you can charge it at no cost. That helped a lot as well. So if you go to the next slide, I think that's where I talk about what we actually have. Yes. Well, we can jump forward one. So currently we have 10 Silverado EVs, 6 Bolts, 8 Chevy Blazer EVs, and 8 Highlander hybrids. The Highlander hybrids were before I was put in place, so I can't really speak to those and the decision that was made on those. But the EVs that are there, the Silverado EVs, the Bolt, and the Blazer is pretty much what we've standardized on for Precinct 2 going forward. I want to say we have that same amount on order waiting to be delivered for the rest of our fleet. You can see here in this picture, it's pulling I believe that's a 6,000 pound roller that's being pulled all the time. I mean, every one of our camps, north, south, east, and central, all have that same setup, and they tow all day, every day with it. What we've noticed is that when we don't just kind of push EVs on somebody, but more so affect the policy to change their behavior, they invite EVs. They really want it, and then they start to toy with the idea of purchasing it themselves. In the society that we have right now, EVs it used to be kind of this political stance, right? To where if you get an EV, you fall on one side of the spectrum or other, and it's not a political decision. When we looked at the assessment of our fleet in comparison to if we were to move to EVs, we were comparing 87 cents per mile for a gas vehicle in comparison to 9 cents per mile for an electric vehicle. 9. 09, because we have a contract for our energy to all of our facilities. We pay an extremely low cost for electricity. And it just, in terms of maintenance, when you look at maintenance, which is another thing we had to really start tracking. I mean, before you would drop your vehicle off at a shop, get a tire change, they just change it. 4 guys come out and they just change it. Now, no repair happens without a work order, meaning every repair is being tracked. When you track every repair, you're looking at over $2,000–3,000 per vehicle per year. And that was completely unaccounted for in the past. With those numbers in mind, there are electric vehicles we've had since 2022, 2021 that we haven't seen back in the shop since the day we bought them. So, I mean, so here's the thing with tires. The tires is actual mileage. You get about 45,000 miles on the tires. Our utilization is not 45,000 miles in 1 year. They're driving between parks, between facilities, and then we have camps dedicated to areas of the precinct. So you're only doing a 10, 15 mile circuit at most per day. You don't reach the 45,000 miles. The other thing that we're noticing, we're looking at, again, our life cycle plan. That was one that we really tried to keep a focus on, because if there is a repair, half the cost of the Blue Book value, you may have to send an electric vehicle to auction. But the reciprocal is true. Double the warranty means we're able to push our life cycle time frame to 16 years. So instead of 10 years, because of a 5-year warranty, we're getting 8-year warranties on the batteries. We can push them to 16 years. And with the utilization that we have, degradation of the battery, we're well within 80% of battery capacity. Well within, yeah.
Planning to place several major components in the life of the vehicle, would you replace the battery or no?
We'll replace the battery within the 8 years. If after the 8 years is past the degradation, our utilization is right around the 40% mark. Unless we're hitting that much degradation, no, we have no plans on replacing the battery packs. And we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that in our numbers. I mean, we're talking 1 to 2% per year. So we don't have the utilization in local government. I mean, we're not driving that far. We are idling that much. So in terms of fuel consumption, yes, you do have that much wear and tear on an ICE vehicle because you have that much idling. And I would say just about every agency within government idles that much. If you have inspectors, fire marshals, when they go to a site, they leave their vehicles running. But when you take idling away, that's a lot of your utilization. Another thing we notice is upfitting. So the power plant of these vehicles are usually 400 volt or 800 volt architecture, right? So it's very hard to do upfitting, but there are now there are quite a bit of vendors that are able to handle upfitting these vehicles to where we can get lighting, sirens. It's no problem with upfitting. In the past, we did see kind of some resistance from the industry that they're not able to do upfitting to scale. But now we've had no problems. We have one of our pickup trucks outfitted with we have 5 of our pickup trucks outfitted with decked drawer components. And I mean, it's one of the best systems that I've seen used in the field because they're able to, lock in their lasers and leave them on the truck. Another thing that we use, I don't have a picture of it. We're starting to convert more than just electric vehicles. When we look at the grand scheme of things, anything that has a motor and wheels, we're trying to see if there's an alternative. So when we started to look at our chainsaws, pole saws, weed eaters, there's a lot of battery alternatives that will do the job and do the job well. And a lot of what we do is disaster response. So this is not high usage like a landscaper. This is immediate usage, but not over long term. So we started to invest in a lot of battery products from Steel and Ego for our chainsaws and pole saws. But what we did not realize is that we can charge all the batteries in the truck and never take them out. So these are now disaster ready at any time to respond anywhere. And that was something we weren't prepared for, is to have these micro facilities that can travel and provide power wherever they go. They don't need to rely on any of the resources at the facility. So in the past, we would have to make sure we had fuel that was close by to, or find a way to bring fuel and carry fuel tanks. We don't have to do that now with the battery equipment. If you go to the next slide, there's something else that I want you guys to see. That's our latest investment, and it's for our side-by-sides, our utility vehicles. We have partnered with Landmaster AMP to purchase. We're purchasing 13 of these electric utility vehicles, which is very different from kind of your golf carts or your other electric kind of side-by-side vehicle. This has the power to tow 4,000 pounds easily. And that's what we're using it for. We use it to actually tow across Sylvan Beach, through the water, no problem. Now, it is on a 48 volt battery system, but the power it has is very equivalent to a diesel Kubota. And the duration the capacity we've seen, using it all day, you're using 20% battery. So when you talk about disaster response in flood prone areas, this has been the best solution possible. I mean, we can go literally anywhere. A lot of times we'll have to take one of our larger kind of 6-inch Godwin pumps. We'll hook it to the back of that and drive straight into the community just to pump out their storm drainage. Yeah, so when we look at infrastructure, we try to keep it separately because we want to provide infrastructure to the entire fleet. One thing we were just afforded was the TXVMP grant, TXVMP. We got a $4 million grant to expand our level 3 charging infrastructure, including solar, as well as the purchase of electric semi-trucks and electric buses. So, go ahead. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we're looking to replace 5 electric shuttle buses and 3 electric semi-trucks within the year. And that should be coupled, because again, we're trying to be mindful of the future, right? And there's specific technology that I want to make sure is there when we're looking at these level 3 charging stations. In the past, level 3 charging stations have always been looked at as a permanent solution, like a permanent infrastructure installation. There is a company called XCharge that will use a coupled battery to the level 3 charging station to make a portable level 3 charging solution that can connect to just a standard 480 volt, 20 amp connection using an industrial, a high industrial connection. So you don't need to upgrade the utility for the facility. And that's really big for us, because at that point, if we get redistricted or if there's a change in facility, we're able to take a forklift, pick those charging stations up and move them to a different facility, no problem. The other thing that XCharge does specifically is that they have a PV input up to 30 kilowatts. So we're able to put a 30 kilowatt solar panel system along with the level 3 chargers, and all of the panel input goes directly into the charger. You don't need a secondary inverter. So that was really big for us, because that allows us to hit underserved areas where there may not be power. Or if we're in the middle of a disaster, we may be able to drop a level 3 charger in the middle of a community. The other thing that we recently invested in was electric forklifts. We have forklifts at all of our facilities, just for pallets of water or, bags of ice for the community during a disaster. One thing we ran into is during Beryl, all of our fuel stations shut down and we were able to drop 2 skid tanks, 1,000 gallons for gasoline, 1,000 gallons for diesel, which meant we had to take equipment back and forth between this facility to all of our other facilities so that we can service them. So diversity of fuel is really big for us. And having the electric forklifts allows us to potentially use the capacity of that forklift until the end of that storm. What we're noticing, because we're not a manufacturer facility. We don't use a forklift all day, 8 hours, 10 hours a day. We use about 2% of battery per day that we use the forklift. So from the time that it was delivered right around a month ago, we haven't charged it yet. And we're sitting at about 74% battery. And again, we watch the percentage. I want to track all of it. But as of right now, it will take us through a storm, no problem. Do you guys have any yeah.
You having to our staff to repair vehicles? You probably farm it all out to the dealer.
Yep.
But in case of those, whatever you call them there, it may be that repair can be done locally. I don't know.
Yeah, so this company here is Landmaster. They're out of Indiana, and they provide a 5-year warranty on the battery. Good thing about electric is, of course, as you guys know, the number of components. This electric Landmaster, when you pull that seat up, there is a motor, there's your suspension, and there's just a battery box. That's it. So in terms of repairs, our mechanics are trained already, because it's similar to a golf cart setup, but of course the size of the motor and the construction of the steel for the body is what makes it rugged. But everything else would be what you would see in like a golf cart. So if it comes time to replace the battery, it has handles on it. You unplug it, pick the handles up, and move it out. On the electric forklift, most of that body is cast iron. Same thing, when you pull up the seat, you do have an inverter, a battery, and then a hydraulic pump. That's it. So in terms of repair, the most extensive repair we are planning for is a vehicle repair, just because there are more, we have cooling systems in vehicles and other things that we may not be prepared for. However, the warranty is what we're really relying on for those vehicle repairs.
Fantastic.
Okay, where do you get your electricity from? Is just from the grid, or do you have solar panels, or what?
So right now we get our electricity from the grid. In terms of solar, it's not a hesitancy, but I want to be really clear that when we move into solar, it's for independence and not just like a narrative that, hey, we have solar on the building. So we're looking at utilization or the consumption of energy for the entire facility, in addition to at minimum 6 level 2 chargers and at least 1 level 3 charger. So that total consumption will allow us to kind of size out the best solar system for the entire year, right? So we're looking at the consumption for the year, and then we can build out a system for that. So we haven't gone solar yet, but we're trying to separate the pieces. So the EV response, the migration, is in response to life cycle in our vehicles and making the most financial conscious choice of having the least TCO, total cost of ownership. That's a completely separate discussion from our building infrastructure, our facilities infrastructure. So I do want to make sure we keep those conversations separate at that level, because bureaucracy can come in and just, it'll muddy the waters and mess all of it up. When really, if you look at what the solution is providing, it's more than just having a vehicle that can feed from solar. One of my goals, one of my personal goals for Precinct 2 is to have something that I call resiliency hubs. In the event of a disaster, right? We had a very bad disaster where most of Houston went down. There was a tornado, and like everybody, we were without power. All of our facilities were without power. And one of my goals is to be able to respond to that by driving a bus to a facility, doing vehicle to facility, and being able to, one, transport the seniors and constituents on the bus to the facility, and then power the facility without any interaction or any interface or assistance from anyone, right? So that is true independence to me. That's taking control of our situation and making the absolute most of it. But in order to do that, that facility would have to have the most solar for the consumption that it experiences, as well as have the thought to go into being prepared for vehicle to grid, right? So we want to make sure we don't install inverters or transfer switches that are not compatible. So we're in very close discussions with Enphase. There's some things that I won't be able to share here about what Enphase is doing, but we're definitely very excited with how Enphase may be able to impact that.
You mentioned total cost of ownership. Have you been running any of these vehicles long enough to see the full life cycle costs yet?
No.
Okay.
No, we haven't run them long enough. Again, we're looking at potentially 16 years of life cycle. What we have found is when we extrapolate the data we have over just the 2-3 years that we've run some of the vehicles, within 5 years, we have a $10,000 cost savings.
And that's on the pickup trucks or on another vehicle?
That's on the Bolt EVs.
Okay.
So the Bolts are the ones we've been running the longest. The Silverado EVs have just been within the last year.
Okay.
I think it's terrific that you are having people drive EVs, forklifts, whatever, who probably that would be the last thing they would consider. And that's, so there's the energy transition. Now we got an EV transition going on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And again, a lot of the policies help that, right? So if you attack the policies on the front side, it makes the adoption really easy on the back end. I mean, most of that EV adoption comes from, we want to idle, right? I mean, it sounds very simple, but when the workers are out there and they know they're not really driving 100 miles a day, when they're out there every day in the heat and the sun, having that idle opportunity is a big bonus. Go ahead.
How long have you been at this job?
I've been at the job just around 2 years.
You have run into, I would guess, a lot of resistance.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But I will say with Commissioner Adrian Garcia, it has been a top-down decision as well as his backing. I bring a lot of ideas to him. And like I was saying earlier, me personally, I do have solar at home. I have 44 panels. I have 40 kilowatt hours of battery. I truly believe in this. I think this is the most stable solution for our community. I've seen people without power during the freeze, and it's horrible, right? It's horrible in two ways. One, you see your community suffering, and then it's horrible that I drive to my house and my outdoor lights are on. It almost feels like I'm just wasting energy. But I have enough. I have enough to cycle through. I feel bad, and at the same time, I want to make sure my family is stable. So I truly believe in this. And when I give him these ideas, I mean, he pretty much tells me, if you have wild ideas, let me know because I want you to run with it. We want to innovate.
And they must be seeing the advantages now that you're pointing out. I mean,
Yeah.
it makes economic sense over the life cycle.
Yeah. So in terms of some of the advantages that they really see on the public works side, the field workers who go out every day, they see the advantages of just having power out in the field, right? They see some of the side benefits, not necessarily that we're affecting climate change or that we're making our community safer because we're cleaning the air, but they just see, I have more access to resources here and I can sit in the truck and idle.
And the chainsaw works.
And the chainsaw works every time, no matter what. That's another thing that we've seen is they can take a chainsaw sharpener out with them. That wasn't an option before, right? You would have to lug a generator and everything else. Now they can take additional tools that they didn't consider in the past. But that's for the field workers. For our staff, for our internal staff, our office staff, they've seen some benefits from the rideshare where they didn't have access to a vehicle, right? One of the biggest issues with ride shares is key management and fuel management. Who's going to be there to hand out keys and who's responsible for the vehicle to refuel it? With electric vehicles and keyless ride share, you take both of those problems away and then you have a vehicle you don't have to maintain. So the vehicle always has enough fuel in theory because when you park it, you charge it. And then for the key, you just use your app.
Raymond for mayor?
Yeah, definitely. The thought that was going through my head is that you're in effect working for the precinct for free because you've saved the precinct so much money. So,
And I mean, I will say there's been a lot of collaboration, right? I've been in collaboration with the fire chief in terms of installing charging stations in parking garages. I even think they have a new code coming out before the end of this year that I had an impact on. So there's been a lot of collaborations across other agencies. But in terms of government, it's really hard to be kind of this thought leader or, I'm gonna do something different because you run the risk. You run the risk of this job may not be here. You did too much. You upset the wrong person. And one good thing about the commissioner is he's new. I'm a new fleet director. I don't know the industry to say, oh, I'm not, no one else is gonna hire me for fleet. I'm an IT director. I'm originally IT. So I am always looking for innovation, and with the commissioner backing that, it makes it easy for us to kind of knock down those barriers and try new things. I'll give you for instance. I talked with leadership about 2 weeks ago. I purchased a Yarbo for myself, and if you're not familiar with Yarbo, it is a robotic lawnmower. It's a little different than the normal robotic lawnmowers like the Lubas and the Husqvarnas. It is a modular robotic lawnmower, right? And it is potentially enterprise ready, depending on how you implement the system. And I told I told leadership about it, and they were like, "Huh, that's interesting, But our facilities are too big for something like that. That's consumer." It's like, yeah, no, this is not your average robotic lawnmower. it'll do 6 acres. Like it has the capacity. And they're like, when you get it installed, take a video and let us know. And we may be the first large order, that comes through as a government agency, because we maintain our parks every day. And it's almost so hard to keep up with our constituents and our playgrounds, because there's so much land to maintain, when really, if you just come by and maintain the robots, it makes it all easier, and if you track them with GPS, you can see the progress, and you can start to bring in data on field maintenance. So it's things like that where my leadership is inclined to push for those ideas, especially if I can show them the proof of concepts.
So you touched on what I had as a question, and that is, now that you've addressed a couple of these utility vehicles and the park service, public utilities, what's next? What are the other use cases where you think an electric vehicle might be a good fit?
So again, the robotic lawnmower, that's one that's very brand new, but something that's not new is electric road maintenance equipment. There are a couple vendors that are selling electric backhoes. There is also an electric laydown machine for asphalt that is currently being sold by Caterpillar. I don't know the vendor, so forgive me for the vendor, but there are heavy duty electric alternatives that are out there that we're aggressively entertaining right now. So aside from that, we're still looking at technology for innovation. I've been in discussions with our public works department about utilizing drones to do topography maps for elevations. That way, as they go and they dig out culverts, we can look at over time how long before those culverts need to be dug out again, and build those trends and do some AI analysis to determine how to make better solutions. So we're still looking at technology innovation just across the board.
I have a question. Are any of the other precincts able to take advantage of your learnings? Are they getting shared?
Yes. So again, like I said, it's very hard for government, especially local government agencies, to kind of pioneer something new. But it's the opposite is also true, that once you do pioneer something, it takes off. So as you saw there, we had 10 electric trucks. We have 8 Chevy Blazers. We did our show and tell. We showed different agencies, and there's another agency that has bought like 45 electric pickup trucks just based on what they saw from us. As long as someone's willing to clear the way, yes, other agencies will follow. And again, aside from kind of the social impacts, there is still a financial assessment that needs to be done, and EVs just overall, their cost is so much cheaper than any other type of vehicle that's out there. So when you look at the cost of EVs and the stress or the backlog, the burden that puts on your mechanic team, how much time that frees up for your fleet services and maintenance, it makes sense. There's no other way to look at it. It just makes sense.
You mentioned 18-wheelers. Are there multiple vendors?
Yes. Yes, you do
okay.
have Kenworth, Vanguard.
Okay.
Oh, that is I'm sorry. Hold on. There's a contract that we did fulfill. Okay, I just wanted to make sure we fulfilled it so I can talk about it.
Okay.
But we did just recently purchase an electric box truck. So there's that's out there as well. There are multiple vendors for Freightliner also has one.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of semi trucks, whether it's 6x4 or even 4x4. There's a lot of semi truck vendors.
Okay. Because I guess it depends on what media people look at. I know that Tesla in California has Pepsi using their 18-wheelers to deliver. So it's good to hear that there are other vendors. You have choices.
So with those 18-wheelers, those are over the road. And a lot of what we do is day cab utility pools or haulers for our equipment. Those are just single day use. So the other vendors that I'm talking about, they have more of that type of semi
Well,
truck.
I think that's what Pepsi in California is doing. It's just a distributor, and they, the drivers just drive each day.
Okay.
They're not doing multiple day trips. They're just doing the deliveries.
I know one
in
big
their
thing with
area.
the Tesla Semi is having 500 miles of range or more.
Yeah.
And what we're looking
Mhm.
at is 200 miles at most. And that's because
Yeah.
we're trying to prepare for, having that 82,000 pound gross vehicle weight.
Mhm.
So with that, we're estimating that with 200 miles, even if it's cut in half to 100 miles, because it's supposed to be done with load, but
Right,
just
right.
just in case.
Right.
With degradation, 100 miles is still more than the
Yeah,
amount of
'cause
range
if you
that we
can
need.
cut down to the size of the battery, that cuts the weight. You can have
Yeah.
more payload weight,
Yep.
less cost. Yeah. So, Bill?
So the robotic lawnmowers, do they eliminate a job, or is a person got to go out there and sit in his cab and
So-
somehow operate them?
No, it's not. It's centrally managed and operated. The thing about as far as eliminating the job, we're trying to expand our capacity, right? So I wouldn't necessarily look at eliminating the job, but it's opening up more opportunity because I still think there's a lot of things we can do for our constituency where, we'll look for more people to hire on when we have the knowledge and the expertise in-house, but it's hard for us to take advantage of that because they're still doing, what they were doing 10 years ago. So now this gives us the opportunity to expand what they're capable of doing because it still includes you have to maintain the mower robot. If it gets hung up or whatever, there's still an alert that will go off that you need to have someone that's capable of managing that. But at the same time, they're not out there 8 hours a day. So if they have to go out there occasionally for an hour, you free up a lot of manpower and hours to do something else.
And I can imagine some of the young people, like, rather not just start a career of only mowing, but
Yeah.
have potential to learn a skill to maintain equipment and so
Yeah.
forth. Yeah.
Just as a comment, we visited Metro and we actually got to ride on one of their buses. So you're talking about the public sector EV transportation. Metro has some EVs.
Yes.
Me and Cullen went out to Cy-Fair School District and he got to drive a electric school bus. And if you go to our Facebook page, they'll have articles on electric police cars, electric ambulances, electric. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just thinking I'm gonna nominate you for the Texas EV organization
Okay.
because you're perfect for, so much. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to get municipalities and governments on board.
Okay.
You're there. Yeah.
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 Sure.
I'm gonna get you in there. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah. Absolutely.
in response specifically to the electric buses, so I know Bluebird has an offering of like a school bus, and then Metro is using a public, I can't think of the name of it, but it's the flat front buses. And what we're trying to get involved with is shuttle buses. So we do shuttles for seniors to veterans support. So that they can get their benefits and things like that. We'll take a group of seniors to the museum. So that those shuttle services have kind of a different type of bus where you can get 4 or 6 wheelchairs in them to support, the seniors. But we are in discussions with some other companies. Again, I'm taking the same approach that I took with everything else. I'm focusing on infrastructure first. So we'll be tackling the level 3 chargers, the solar panels. We'll make sure that is in place before I put one of our staff in a vehicle where they potentially run out of charge. And what I don't want to do is become reliant upon third-party services like EVgo or Electrify America. Although those services are there, I don't want anyone to have the capability to leverage their service against us as a government agency. So.
Yeah, and they also have electric fire trucks, electric ambulances. So if just if you have the chance, go to our Facebook page and you can just Google that. It's just everything's going electric aircraft, electric watercraft, and so it's par for the course.
All right. You're a wealth of information. I mean, this is, we've learned more tonight than any other month this year. This is fantastic. Yeah. So more questions, comments?
Funded. The
funding. So
funding source.
that's a good question. When I first came into the organization, came into the fleet side of the organization, you have to remember not a lot of data was there, right? So there was just a standard allotment of the budget to fleet for replacement of vehicles as well as maintenance of vehicles. Within the first year, I was able to shave that by 65%. And with that amount of cut, and that just comes from tracking and changing the behavior of our staff, right? When you take out idling, we had 8 hours of idling. When you bring that down to 40 minutes, you increase the life of that vehicle and reduce the maintenance. Those costs have a very real impact very early on. So I was able to reduce our complete budget for just fleet by about 60%. And then with that cut, that paid for a lot of our life cycling of vehicles. Because again, those vehicles still have to be life cycled. There was no life cycle policy or plan in place. So us purchasing vehicles is just a determination or understanding, are we going to replace it with an ICE vehicle or an electric vehicle? Now, in terms of total upfront costs, a lot of people say electric vehicles are $15,000 more, and they're not. After you get your rebates and any tax credits that you can get, you're looking at $5,000, $6,000
And
above
costs look
cost.
to be coming down because the
Yeah.
big demand for lithium batteries has been met by increased production, and the cost of the batteries is a big part of the cost of the vehicles. And
Yeah.
that's come down. So yeah, people
And-
are talking about parity with gasoline
Well,
vehicles.
they're also just looking at the top of the line consumer vehicle that they're offering for, you look at the Silverado EV and you say, oh, that's $100,000, but it's not. It's $68,000 compared to 1,500, which is $59,000.
Yeah, yeah. So they're in the same
So,
ballpark.
yeah. And then when you take the 7,500 off, you're right there. You're within $2,000. So in terms of cost difference, looking at total cost of ownership, even without all the data that we had to determine total cost of ownership, you're not looking at a big upfront cost. That is still separating infrastructure from the purchase of the vehicle.
So folks online have put a couple of questions
Oh.
into the chat.
Okay.
So the first one, are there any issues for robotic mowers being stolen?
Potentially. So these robotic mowers from Yarbo will work without a boundary wire. They use the RTK protocol to do communication, which also puts in place GPS. So they have GPS built into the units. Additionally, the units weigh somewhere around 200 to 250 pounds. So that should discourage theft as much as possible. But aside from that, the equipment will lock whenever it moves outside of its boundary or it's picked up. So in terms of theft, one will have live GPS, but in addition to that, it won't work or do anything else once it's removed.
Okay. And the second one, in fact, you can look on that screen right there from Emma. Raymond, great talk and wonderful to see how you and our precinct are leading the way to electrifying Houston city government. Wish NASA JSC has your experience. Okay, she is head of the club down there and management backing. Unfortunately, the JSC EV fleet is almost non-existent. The L2 charging stations are not available for employees to use. Approval has been held up at NASA headquarters. So yeah, they recently got some charging put in down there. And I saw there's a Ford PHEV in the fleet right now, but there's not enough availability of vehicles. They're having difficulties getting more EVs into the fleet.
And see, to me, that just says that a cost analysis hasn't been done yet. Because if you just look at the vehicle as a vehicle, it doesn't make sense not to go with an EV unless it's a take-home vehicle and there's a potential that you won't have enough charging at level 2. Looking at level 3, yes, you start to increase that cost of ownership. But with just level 2, if you do a standard TCO analysis, the vehicle is way cheaper to operate over the life cycle duration of 8 to 10 years. It's way cheaper to operate an electric vehicle. And electric vehicles are not on an 8 to 10 year life cycle schedule. So in addition to that, one thing, because I ran into that same thing at the precinct, level 2, the electricians, they want to get engineering involved and they want to prolong, we may need permits. So what I requested was, can you install an outdoor stove? That's why I started.
Mhm.
We have a patio area for our staff. I want an outdoor stove.
Mhm.
And they came and put the outlet in and they asked me, where's the stove? And I drilled and put up a level 2 charging station and plugged it right into the outlet. Thank you very much. Like,
Smart.
because they're no more than standard appliances.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
tend to think of them as like, oh, these, it's like a fueling station. It's
Mhm.
not, it's like a stove. And
Mhm.
what you're having a discussion about is, do you want a Samsung stove or an LG stove? Let's delay the installation until we can figure this out.
Ah,
No, I want an appliance. It's a 240-volt outlet.
very good.
Plug me in. That's all I'm looking for. So when I started the discussion in that way, it wasn't necessarily, oh, let's get engineering involved. And, it became, okay, do a load analysis for the facility.
Mhm.
Can it handle a stove? Yes. Then give
You
me a
can
level 2 charging
run the
station.
wire. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
And
good.
it literally happened the same way for every facility because every person had the same question. And what they're really afraid of is it's going to catch fire and my building is going to burn down.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's just not how it works.
Okay.
And it's very hard to teach against that using technical, like, oh, it has a battery management system and people don't understand that. So to control the narrative, it's an appliance.
Yeah.
You have a stove, we don't turn it off at night.
Mhm.
It's the same idea. So that's really how we got a lot of our infrastructure in place to start with.
Yeah. So Emma mentioned one thing that you touched on, which is employees charging. So you said there somewhere in the precinct, there's 4 hours a day available.
Yeah, so
Employees?
it's in our policy right now that employees
Mhm.
can charge at no cost for up to 4 hours.
Wonderful.
And because we have the in-phase chargers, they're not monitored or they're not connected chargers. We were we wanted to really look at risk as well as disaster preparedness.
Mhm.
So when I looked at the smart chargers or connected chargers, network chargers, you run the risk of chargers having to do updates, which could potentially present downtime,
Mm.
especially during a disaster.
Mhm.
So I wanted to make sure that we had non-network connected chargers.
Good.
They just work as they are. If you flip a breaker, charger's
Yeah.
on. And in the event of an emergency, nothing can be done to stop charging availability.
Yeah. And you
so-
mentioned very low cost electricity, which is
Yeah.
good because the hang up at JSC being federal property is they aren't able to give the electricity away to employees and they aren't allowed to charge for the electricity to employees. And then of course you also have the employees that say, well, where's my free gasoline if you're giving these other employees free
Yeah.
energy for their vehicles?
It does pose a problem, especially in policy and government, which is why it's just a smaller branch of government. It's not all of Harris County, right? And
Oh.
I do foresee that we will have a lot of pushback on.
So
and-
you haven't had any employees ask for their free gasoline?
Oh yeah, all the time. And it's
Okay.
just get an EV and you'll have your free
Good
gasoline.
answer.
Now,
Good answer.
I am pretty sure once this really takes off, that policy will be removed from our employee hand guide. However, in terms of adoption and buy-in, that's just one of the steps that we've taken to begin with. And it puts the discussion on the table of employee charging because it is very much an option when you can go inside and charge your phone. You can go inside and charge your electric scooter. To what scale do you stop that?
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
And the thing that people say at JSC is, well, we don't charge for electricity for your coffee pot or tea
Right.
hot pot or something like that. Yeah. I mean, it's minimal. And we all know, of course, but a lot of people out there think, oh, well, the fuel for that EV is as much as the $130 it cost me to fuel up my
Exactly.
SUV 2 tanks and
Yeah.
things like that. Yeah. So they're looking at a different scale. So yeah, a couple of people made comments to what Emma wrote, but down at the bottom, can you provide your email and phone information in case we want to reach you? So are you
Oh, yeah.
willing to let us give that to everybody?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. And at the beginning, I probably should have mentioned this is being recorded and it's okay that we
Yeah.
post it on our site.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if you ever get the time to reach out to them, because those ideas from the constituents, or at least that buy-in and those requests help to really push it along. I mean, there are some areas that sparked the conversation of solar because those requests were made, right? And we're doing a Solar for All program that's
Mhm.
supposed to be coming out very soon. A lot of that was sparked by the community. So
Mhm.
yeah, if you can reach out to them and share your thoughts and your
Mhm.
gratitude it directly to them, it will go a long way.
Yeah.
Because we are trying to make inroads and make an impact in areas that other agencies are, they may be slow to adopt.
Mhm.
So it does help to have that.
I think keep us updated on what you're up to so we can
Yeah.
lobby in behind the scenes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned about the, air quality in the precinct at the very beginning. And I hadn't realized that some of our parks vehicles were idling for 8 hours
Yeah,
nonstop.
and we do have a policy to where if you work 30 minutes, you rest in the air conditioned space for 15 minutes just from a safety standpoint, and that poses an issue when you're at a park with no facility.
Mhm.
So they're willing to go hard to work to keep that park safe and clean.
Mhm.
But we have to provide those resources then to
Mhm.
keep them cool and safe. So how do we do that? You now have a moving facility
Mhm.
with that electric vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and you mentioned bolts at the beginning. It's too bad they're not making new bolts right now.
Yeah, well, so our boat replacement, our idea is to move more into Equinoxes.
Oh,
However,
good.
with the Blazer EV and the Silverado EV, I'm just not seeing the utility for the Equinox just yet.
Mhm.
We do a much better job of expanding our rideshare with the
Mhm.
Blazer and the Silverado.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, looking at the Equinox and Blazer, the prices on just thinking of other manufacturers, some of the, I don't know if the Korean manufacturers that make in the US would be viable or Tesla would be viable. The Model Y prices come down significantly.
And another thing that we do try to make sure we have in place is when we decide these vehicles, we're looking at the amount of kilowatt hour in the battery. So
Okay.
we're doing the price point per kilowatt hour is
Mhm.
the highest weighted factor when deciding the vehicles.
Okay. Well, now some of the manufacturers, what they're doing is making their vehicles more efficient
Yeah.
so they can do the same amount with a smaller size battery.
True.
So,
But so if you look at kind of my overall plan and
Mhm.
what I kind of presented for our leadership, efficiency efficiency is recognized over utilization. So as you
Mhm.
drive a lot of miles, you'll realize the efficiency.
Mhm.
But what we're preparing for is disaster response. So
Mm.
you want that larger battery
I
so that you
gotcha.
can use the battery in
Yeah,
the
if
event of
you're
a
drawing
disaster.
out of the battery to
Yeah.
do something else, it doesn't matter if the vehicle's aerodynamic or has a
Exactly.
heat pump or anything
Yeah.
like that, because you're drawing the battery
Yeah.
to power other things.
So in
Gotcha.
terms of
Yeah.
efficiency, if we're not doing more than 40 miles a day, it's hard to realize those gains of efficiency because they will be charging overnight, right?
Mhm.
So our range anxiety is not really impacted
Mhm.
by that figure as much as just pure kilowatt hours.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
I'll give you a story. We
Mhm.
we've done a few parades with our Silverado EV.
Ah.
First parade, everybody was very afraid. We're towing a very large trailer. There'll be people on the trailer.
And you're going parade speeds.
Yeah. So they brought the electric Silverado out with a generator. And they had the generator run air conditioners on the trailer, as well as like a little DJ setup and electric blow up balloons. And they had the
Mhm.
generator run all of that while they pulled the trailer. We use right around 8% to go from Baytown to downtown with the trailer and then back to Baytown.
Yeah.
So the next time we went to the parade, we did it all solely from the Silverado EV using the Power Pro pack in the back,
Mhm.
which gives you 10 kilowatts of electricity, right?
Mhm.
It gives you 10 kilowatts of power. So it ran 4 portable air conditioners.
Mhm.
It ran the DJ booth as well as 2 of the blow up
Mhm.
machines. We used 20% over 7 hours in the parade. And
Wow.
that's including the travel
Mhm.
with the trailer.
Yeah.
So now it is our main parade vehicle
Yeah.
because we also provide so many other resources
Yeah.
having that much
Yeah.
electricity
And,
there.
and I just think of the quality of the air of the people standing around to
Yes.
watch the parade that want to get up close.
That's another thing because you'll see a lot of the bigger trucks and they throw candy, right?
Mhm.
But they can't really rev the engine because of the amount of diesel smell
Yeah.
that comes out. So they have to throw the candy far
Yeah.
because they're trying to keep the vehicle further away.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the EV, I mean, people come right up to the truck. You're really able to engage the community. No
Nice.
issues at all.
Nice. I hadn't even thought about parades. I don't know why. All these years, I've just not really thought about parades. So, all right. Other questions, comments?
There's, you've probably heard of bi-directional charging where you can use your vehicle, you could plug in your house or your building into your vehicle. And then that was a big help during Burl. A lot of people used that option to operate their house and refrigeration.
Yeah. So with the bidirectional charging, because there's not a lot of equipment that's out right now, we're still working with some specific manufacturers to prepare for bidirectional charging at phase three phase. So at single phase, there's some limited equipment out to do bidirectional, but when you get into three phase, it becomes entirely a different beast. And all of our facilities are three phase. We did not want to do a separate single phase critical loads. I want to be able to power the entire facility, right? So I don't want to take any shortcuts or do any workarounds or band-aids. We're really working to make sure the investment goes wholly into three-phase bidirectional. So that we are aware of bidirectional, and we want to make sure we do it right.
Yeah. We have somebody who likes flying in electric airplanes.
Oh, nice.
Hey, Adrian, I got here late and I'm going to watch your presentation again, but where do you guys, what is your funding mechanism for your vehicles?
So
Like,
again, we have a standard budget allotment for our fleet department. And a part of my implementation plan included generating a life cycle policy, right? Just what it takes to replace our standard vehicles that we have and we use already. I use that already existing allotment to fund these vehicles. This was not an additional funding requirement. It was a replacement of our existing vehicles that needed to go to auction and be replaced by a different vehicle. Along with that, I wanted to make sure we had transparency and the data to back everything up. So I did track all of the utilization of our vehicles before determining which ones needed to be replaced. So it truly is a data-driven decision based on financial numbers to replace these vehicles with EVs.
All right. Yeah.
that's really interesting. That you guys are doing a whole total cost of ownership model,
Yes.
because a lot of the cities and others that have fleet departments, they like have different buckets for the purchase of the vehicle, the fuel of the vehicle, the maintenance of the vehicle. And so it's hard to compare a higher upfront cost for an EV, but lower operating costs.
Yeah, so
But that's awesome.
we track everything, including the maintenance. I keep numbers on the life of the vehicle from the time that we purchase it. So all of the fuel utilization, maintenance, whether it's a light bulb or a tire, nothing leaves our maintenance shop unless it's attached to a work order. So we track everything along with our GPS trackers for idling and fault codes, things like that. But we do total cost of ownership analysis on all of our vehicles. And what we found out is that our ICE vehicles were operating at about 87 cents per mile. And then our electric vehicles, we estimated at first that it would be about 25 cents per mile. What we're seeing over at least 2 years is about 9 cents per mile to operate the electric vehicle. And then when we extrapolate that data, after 5 years, we have a $10,000 savings of just normal operations, including the cost of the vehicle. Now, in terms of upfront costs, you can't look at the retail numbers because we are a government fleet. So our upfront costs on vehicles are about somewhere between $5,000 and $7,000 more than the standard vehicle. You can get a Silverado EV for like $69,000. It's not the $100,000 that you see for the top model RST for the consumer. So we're not exactly paying those numbers. We're getting the work truck, the utility side of it.
Great. Okay. Any other comments either in the room or online? So this is fantastic. We want chance for Bill to talk about batteries here tonight too. And any other comments on projects that people have going on and things like that. So,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you so much, Raymond. Oh, so enlightening. This is fantastic. All right. So just real quick, somebody's father in the room here is asking, do you buy or lease the vehicles at your precinct to purchase? Okay. I thought there'd be a quick answer so that Fred wouldn't go wondering to bed tonight, the answer to his question.
He's actually a part of our IT team. He's
Oh,
IT manager.
very good, very good. And of course, we hope you and all your family members and Joel and everybody keep coming every month and such too. I mean, this is a great way to get an introduction to all the stuff that you know about that we're getting a tiny peek of, but we'd love to have you coming every month. And I mentioned the social, so please come to the social in December if you're able to. And this is all on our webpage and Facebook in case you didn't catch what we said earlier tonight about time and date and place. Yeah, yeah. Because we said that's Sunday, December 8th. The Cats is at 3 p.m. The Cats is at 5930 Westheimer, not the Montrose. So.
Yes,
Yeah. Amber
chimney. With
Amber
two
chimney
capitals.
with capitals in front, all run together. And tomorrow it'll be different. So it doesn't matter. We tell everybody. Yeah. So, all right. I will pull up the photo that you sent.
Hey, do these glasses fall?
There's a pair of glasses left in the room. We found the owner. Good.
Thank you. So I'm fond of saying that batteries are everything.
You need to get up front, they can't see you.
There you go. Now you're in the picture. Yeah.
Okay.
Besides.
So I'm fond of saying batteries are everything. I have batteries at home, batteries out at my container in the back where I charge my EV. I bought 2 wrecked Nissan Leafs, and this is one of 48 of the cells that come in these vehicles. They're not new. And Dave's going to pull up a picture of a 17 kWh battery that I'm putting together. As I mentioned, there's 48 of these. I'll pass this around if you like. There's 8 volts between here and here. I want to see. Yeah. Yeah, it sure would. Anyway, I placed 36 of those in a box that somebody was kind enough to give to me. And I've configured them 7S 5 times. And as soon as we get the photograph, I'll point out, is there a laser pointer here?
No.
No, okay. Anyway, it just, I bought these packs. I opened them up, was very careful. It was 380 volts. I did not use, as Ken mentioned, PPE safety equipment working with a high voltage, and I'm here to talk about it. Did you? It was an email. Yeah. Anyway, as I mentioned, these packs are nominal 48 volts because that's what the batteries are in my container. If let me see, I know some people here have battery. Ken, you have battery packs at home. A lot of people. Eric, do you have battery packs too at home? Not big ones. Anyway,
Right, yeah, you don't have a picture yet, but.
don't have a picture.
Think it's
No, it's not. Well, it's I did find some cells in a junkyard, which most of which were bad. Yeah, I'll do that. Anyway, if there are any questions, I'll be glad to give you an answer. Generally, these wrecked vehicles cost $750, and you can sell them at LKQ for $550 after you drop the battery pack out of it. Battery pack comes out the bottom. It's maybe an hour and a half worth of work for one person, and then use a grinder to open them up and disassemble them, and there you have it. Any questions? Maybe Kevin would like to talk about his recent acquisition. You couldn't find it, Dave, is that right? You're getting there.
So you're putting together 48-volt modules?
Yes, sir. Either Ant or Daily. I haven't, I've experimented with Daily, but I have not experimented with Ant yet. Ant is a Chinese brand, maybe $36 for, even though these, I've got 7 of these in series, that cell is 2S2P. So there's really 14 batteries in series in my 48-volt battery pack. Well, I most likely will hook it up to some other batteries that I have in parallel, and it goes through a inverter charger to provide 240 volts. Yes, sir. Right. Anyway. Kevin? It'll come up here in a minute.
So, my son Mitchell had this favorite dish that was called dancing chicken. And the reason we called it dancing chicken was because he walked in the kitchen one day and he said, "What's for dinner, Mom?" And she said, "Chicken curry chicken." And he went, "Chicken." So we called it dancing chicken. So the reason I introduced that is because, where's the camera?
Yeah, he switched you there. Sorry.
Oh, that's Bill's battery.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's okay.
Any questions?
Do you have any questions on Bill's battery?
The bus bars to make the series connection.
It needs to be rotated, yeah.
Yeah,
That's good.
that's
So what
cool.
happens if one cell goes bad? Is it isolated?
I would defer to Ken. He's got a better idea.
I don't know what you mean by bad.
Well, it's defective or,
Shorted or opened?
well, if it non-conforms.
If it's shorted and still conducts, you might still get some goodie out of it. If one of them goes open, then you get to spend a weekend fixing it.
So the whole thing just cascades to the others.
You need to pull one of the modules out. If one of those was deficient, you need to pull one out. And I think Bill was explaining to me earlier, he's got a couple of different configurations there. You can imagine having some spares, but.
And the software will tell you exactly which one.
Sorry,
is not
Kevin.
conforming.
There's another story as to why you don't want to mix cells of different capacity and one string. But, assuming that you had something from that was a similar capacity, you could swap on it.
You know exactly which one.
You gotta figure it out. Yeah.
We need to be on mics for the folks online. If you want to talk more about it. Emma's asking Bill, how heavy is the Leaf battery pack? Was it a 2-person job to get it out of the wrecked Leaf?
It was certainly doable by one person. I used a floor jack,
Floor
and the center of gravity of the pack is marked on the bottom of it. So you just support it, remove 10 bolts, remove the electrical connection,
Mhm.
remove the communication connection, and drop it down, pull it out on the jack, and then hopefully set it on a 4-wheel something or other so you can move it around.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's it. So who's got the pointer here? Here we go. I'll just briefly point out the so this is
Mi-
1, 2,
Microphone, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 7 here, 7 here, 7 here. And I have 8 cells on the bottom, and I'm not going to use one of them to make the 5th 48-volt. And again, I don't know what. So I mentioned that these cells are 2S2P. So there's the center connection. You mean the picture doesn't?
The laser pointer in the
Oh, okay.
room doesn't
Well,
reach the people
there
online,
you
but
go. You can, or whoever's doing it. Anyway.
okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, Kevin is now pointing out what you
Yeah.
just pointed out on the
Oh, right.
batteries. Yeah, for folks online.
And when I was screwing these bus bars on here, I did accidentally short something and it sparked very briefly. Then I found a pencil and pulled it away. Oh, yeah, I didn't let the smoke out, but there were some sparks. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, we always want members to learn from other members in the club. So, yep. Very good. Very good. Yeah, yeah. Kind of jump back and forth here. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, is the camera on?
Let me stop sharing. Now the camera's on.
Can you see that?
I see some white boxes and a house with,
That looks like the Tesla app.
yeah. I see the green current
You see the
flowing.
little green current moving?
Yes, I do. Coming from left to right. Yeah. And then down.
So, I got Tesla power walls,
Ah.
got 2 of them.
Uh-huh.
I got solar about, let's see, 6 years ago in 2018. And it never really made sense until CenterPoint proved to us that they have a hard time keeping the lights on.
Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah.
convinced my chief financial officer to approve it, my wife,
Yeah.
because I've been trying to get them for a long time. Because, as some of you know, Tesla is now a utility here in the state, and they are able to participate in the electricity time of use markets as a power generator and distributor. So they aggregate all of the Powerwall customers and build a virtual grid. And if you let them, they will charge and discharge your batteries. And you can tell them what the limits are, and they will pay you a portion of what they make. So it's now here in Texas, it has become, even though we have fixed rate plans, if you join Tesla, you can actually make money with your power walls.
Yes, that's a good thing. Jim over there is smiling.
Jim,
We know.
Jim is my one of my first. I was trying to follow Jim.
Yeah, yeah. So
And,
yeah, learning from each other. That's what we like to do in the club here. So.
Install, unfortunately, just a few things. Applied for it in February. What month are we in now?
Not
It
February.
took 9 months.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Just a
Mhm.
combination of project and permitting. The pit permitting was city was an issue, which I think, we maybe I told Bill I'm going to go down to the city council and have my little 3 minutes at one of the meetings.
Yes.
And I think we all ought to start doing that. We should start trying to get everybody to kind of talk to their city councilman and see if we can do better, because the city is really it's not helping this situation.
Yeah, as Raymond said, Adrian Garcia, our precinct chair or commissioner, sorry, that's the word I was looking for, wants to hear from folks and improve things. So
Yeah, it can get improved. I think it's a matter of getting the right leadership expression and incentives for folks to, and whatever resources need to be put over there so that,
So a side question about your solar arrays. I know that you had them mounted extra high. What's your experience been for 6 years? Has that made a difference?
yeah, my system, I mean, I obviously wasn't able to, compare it having them low to high, but the data definitely shows that you get 2 to 4% increase in production
By keeping them cooler, by having them.
by the panel being cooler.
Okay, okay.
And I learned that from Bill
Uh-huh.
because I went to visit Bill one afternoon and the sun was shining on his panels, on his mounts. And I went, I wonder how hot that those panels are super hot. And then, but if you reached out, it's silicon, right? So it's really an insulator. So if you reach back just 6 inches,
Mhm.
you can't feel the radiant heat. And I went, So I did some research, and sure enough, they're more efficient if they're a little cooler.
Okay.
So I decided to pay a little extra to put them higher. And the house looks a little, you know, different. It looks different because you have more of a gap between the solar panels and the roof line, which aesthetically, I think most people like to have the panels right up on the roof. But
Mhm.
anyways,
Yeah. Well, it also speaks to ground mounts because then you don't have something
then
right,
you don't have that.
right behind you. Yeah.
The other, did you have a question? You looked like you had a question.
Mhm.
I was just gonna say, a lot of the issues that I faced was the interconnect agreement, and trying to get the utility to complete that process. And, something that I did was to report them to the PUC, and they came out within a week. So, I went from, I was waiting 60 days till I was waiting 7 days. And I mean, when they come out and test it, of course, they pass it. But that was one of the bigger hurdles that I had to do. Mine was a self-install though, so I didn't have to deal with the contracting and the permitting, like you may have to do inside of the city of Houston.
Yep. Yeah. And the city is, there's restrictions that the city has that are above the national and state code. They won't allow, for example, power walls inside a structure in the city of Houston. If you get them outside of the city of Houston, you can put them in the garage. And so, and you used to be able to put them in the garage. And so, then they also have restrictions about, now they require each power wall to be 3 feet apart. You can't have them within 3 feet of any door or window. The code actually says primary and secondary egress. So, there's just a ton of restrictions, which makes the designing harder. I put them on the north wall of the detached garage. What else did I learn?
I'll mention that Emma has power walls also, I think 3 of them, and she might chime in on what her install was like.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all I have, really. I don't think I have anything else. I'm still, I haven't even seen them because I've been working, but I'm gonna go probably spend the night looking at them and carrying my phone and
Of
doing
course.
whatever I'm gonna do.
Of course. Yeah. So Emma's do happen to be in the garage, but of course she's down in Lake City.
Before you sit down, Alan, 3 quick fire questions. Are your new Powerwall 3?
They are.
Have you changed your retail electric provider to Tesla Electric?
Not yet. I
Oh.
just turned them on yesterday.
Oh, okay. And so then the next question will be answered in the future. Have you joined a VPP?
So tell me about that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I have 3 Tesla Powerwalls. They're the older Model 2. After I installed them and Tesla announced the VPP plan, I listened to it for a little while and thought about it. Finally switched over. I switched my provider over to Tesla Electric, and then they allowed me to join the VPP. And the punchline of all is, in my first 12 months of operation, my total electric bill was $19. This is for 2,500 foot standard American ranch house, 4-bedroom, etc., in Houston.
Yeah.
So I was able to sell profitably a lot of excess energy from my power walls back into the grid. And I don't have to do anything about that. Tesla and their artificial intelligence algorithms manage all that for me.
That's right.
Yeah, I have solar too. How much? 33 panels, and it's about 12 kilowatts.
So my system is 40 44 panels. They're rated at 13.6, but the roof orientation is north-south. So I have 14 panels on the east side and 30 panels on the west side. And my peak production is around 10. And so my system's a little smaller than Jim's, but I expect to have the same results. It's, to me, and I've talked to Emma about it. To me, this is a game changer. It is, because now you can participate and you can actually, these become revenue generators in a big way. My existing plan is charging me 7 cents for the kilowatt hour, plus I'm paying the 5 cents roughly for the distribution. So I'm paying 12 cents a kilowatt hour. They are, when I export to the grid, they're paying me the average wholesale price for the month, which means on my last bill, I got 1.2 cents a kilowatt hour. That's it. So when I installed the solar system in 2018, it was 1-for-1. It was with Green Mountain, and it was 1-for-1. And Emma's still on Green Mountain, and she's, I think, still on 1-for-1. But with Tesla being able to barter, and to actually participate in the market and charge at a very low price and export at a high price, it's a game changer.
And they calculate their rate on 15-minute intervals. So it's real time, the real time the real time electric price, they keep 10%, you get 90% of it. It doesn't take very many 15-minute intervals in a month where you're selling into the grid for $5, even though the rest of the month you might only be making 2 cents a kilowatt, that you come out with a negative bill for your electricity.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's it.
So for people who are interested, there's another company that has a similar technology. It's called Base Power. Their business model is different. Like Tesla, they have a waiting list. I think it may be close to a year now. The difference in their business model is on both ends. They front the capital. You pay for an installation charge, but you don't buy the equipment. They own and maintain the equipment. And I don't think they are quite as generous in the revenue sharing. But if that's something that you're interested in, but don't want to lay out the capital for a full 3-unit Tesla wall, there's another option that might fit. Base Power.
Good.
Thanks, Ken.
Good.
Well, thanks, Kevin. That was very enlightening as well. We're getting enlightened all over the place here tonight. All right. So any other things that folks want to bring up? Anything else in the chat? Emma responded, yes, Green Mountain is still giving me 1-for-1 and they are paying me 18 cents per kilowatt hour. Wow. Okay. And she's got quite a sizable system and an efficient house, and it's all working out well for her. So yeah, we're happy all the time when we hear about solar generating electricity. Yeah. I've got just a little tiny one on my garage roof. My experiment, as I call it. So hopefully we'll step up to something else. Ken, did you have something else? Okay. All right, then. Okay, Kevin.
So I have a friend in Austin, Dave Tuttle. He's on TechCetera on, now it's called EV Texas. Did you guys mentioned about EV Texas?
Yeah. Where you got it?
And he has been very enlightening to me. He says, are you getting Powerwall 3s? And he asked about Powerwall 3s. It's a new chemistry. It's more efficient, better cooling. It has its own inverter. There's a bunch of advantages to them in the future. The other thing that he asked me about was the gateway. So I was able to get them to change from the 2-version gateway to the 3-version gateway. The 3-version gateway is what Tesla uses for vehicle to load. So the Cybertruck has vehicle to load. Tesla's future plans are to have all of their vehicles have vehicle to load on. So, you're going to be able to use your cars to participate in this whole
Mm,
powering your home and getting charged at different rates. And so
wow.
it's going to be, it's the future for sure.
Yes.
So
yes.
Powerwall 3 and 3V gateway.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. So if we've run out of comments and things that we can learn, we will wrap it up for this time. So encourage everybody to come to our December social. In January, again, we will pick up here, TXRX. Yeah, Bill?
You decided where the folks can be located?
Yes, yes. So Cat's at 5930, some number like that, Westheimer. So the Galleria Cats, not the Montrose Cats. And we'll be there at 3 p.m. on Sunday, December 8th. So yes, and that info is on our Facebook and webpage and on the YouTube video when this gets posted. Thank you, Colin. And so hope to see everybody there, plus the folks who cannot make it because Thursday is just not a good day for them for 11 months out of the year, but they can make it on a Sunday. Looking forward to seeing the folks that did that last year, made it out. And so we will continue in January. We're talking about a potential speaker for January. And of course, Raymond, we want to keep hearing all this good stuff about Precinct 2. This is wonderful, so enlightening. And boy, have I learned about idling gasoline vehicles. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you later.